I'm going to share some experiences about doing research, guiding research, and one more important topic when it comes to developing research thinking is what is role of creativity and research. So as I said, we have these two themes running. One is active learning. The other theme running is research. And we have these lectures spread. And finally, at the end of it, you will be able to see a mix of all coming together. So one thing NPIU had suggested to us was that we should share our experiences with regarding doing research. Now there are many facets to when I say doing research. Many of you here are already PhDs, not just that. Many of you are already guiding PhDs. Okay. There is other class probably, when I was speaking to some of the participants, some of you are actually registered for PhD halfway through, maybe close to submission and different stages. And a third class is, faculty members who are aspiring to do PhD, aspiring to do research. Okay. More than that, as we know from the list of faculty attending this course, there are many departments represented here, mainly computer science, civil, electrical, mechanical, but some are from chemical, metallurgy, and mining, then basic sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and humanities. So now sharing our experiences about research to such a wide cross section of faculty members, that to faculty members who themselves are involved in research is somewhat a challenging task, but I'm going to attempt that. So I'm going to talk on two things. One is initially for an hour or so, I want to do some reflections on what is research. So you could view this lecture in two different ways. One is if you are aspiring to do research, if you are new to doing research, then I want to give some tips as what are the things that are needed. How do you prepare oneself for research? What is research? What are the common misconceptions and so on? What is really needed? How do you prepare yourself for research? So I'm going to condense it, put it in 1 hour module about this. So this is for a beginner. At the same time, if you are mentoring PhD students, the PhD students working with you, what is it that you need to tell them so that they get prepared for research? So this could be used in two ways. It could be used for, if you are a budding researcher, it's for you to understand what are the effective ways of preparing yourself for research, what is really needed to do research. And the second thing that we need to, the second viewpoint could be that, well, I have a couple of PhD students working with me, and I need to train them. So how do I go about it? Yeah. So this is a lecture which I have prepared with the help of my friend. Let me briefly talk about my experience in this. Since I'm coordinator, I'm introducing myself. Others, we will be introducing other faculty. Well, I have done my BTech, MTech, PhD from IIT system. All three, I did my BTech from IIT BHU. My MTech was from IIT Madras, and my PhD was from IIT Bombay. And then I was faculty in IIT Madras for 6 years. After that, I shifted to IIT Bombay. My area of research is I'm telling you this with a little bit of purpose. It's connected with what I'm going to do. My area of research is control systems. So I work in an interdisciplinary area. So because of that, I have been fortunate to interact with many disciplines. I have had students from electrical engineering, I have had students from mechanical engineering, from aerospace department here. Because even though I am a faculty member of chemical engineering, I have students from, we have also one more department here called Systems and Control Engineering. So my PhD is from Systems and Control Engineering, and I also guide students, MTech and PhD students from Systems and Control Engineering. So to some extent, I have interacted with many disciplines. So that's why I'm trying to make this talk a little bit general so that it cuts across many disciplines and it will be useful for all of you. So these are more of reflections on what we need to do to train a new researcher, because this is the problem that we face. We have a large number of PhD students, and it's a joint presentation. This is prepared with the help of my friend from IIT Madras, Professor Karmalkar. Professor Karmalkar also is a senior researcher about my age. I have guided about 16 PhD students, and then 5 are currently working under my. So, and Professor Karmalkar too has guided 15 PhD students, 15 to 20 PhD students. So between us, we have seen many PhD students. They have been guiding funded research and so on. So now these are the reflections that we want to share with you, and you can interpret it whichever way you want. You can use this to sensitize your new PhD students when you are guiding PhD. Other way around, if you are doing PhD, maybe these reflections will help you to chart the course in your PhD. After this initial part, then I'll move to next part, which is thinking skills. So creative thinking, how it is related to research, and can it be developed, or is it some gift one should have? So let's begin with this. My talk is, first I'm going to dwell a little bit on what is difference between UG and PG education. It's very important that a new researcher is sensitized about what are the differences, because till undergraduate he is being trained in a particular way, and there is a sea change when the person starts doing research, and we need to sensitize the students about what is. Then there are many misconceptions about research, and it takes us a lot of time to undo those misconceptions. So I'm going to little bit spend some time on what are the common misconceptions, and maybe either you have them or you are facing that your student has those misconceptions. So qualities of researchers, what are the qualities that a researcher should have, and what you should emphasize to your students. A little bit, I'm going to talk about something called scientific method, which is at the core of doing research, and what is its relationship with communication skills. And I want to emphasize that communication skills is one of the most important part that you need to develop and work on when it comes to doing research. So we'll talk about this, and then I'll have some concluding remarks. So let's begin with UG and PG education. Undergraduate education is aimed at creating a generalist who understands various facets of a particular discipline, be it mechanical engineering, be it computer science, and is able to handle routine problems that may arise in the industry in which a particular discipline is relevant. So that is the purpose of having undergraduate education, and all of you are very clear about that. Master's degree is aimed at creating a specialist in a particular sub area, and of course many of the institutions here have master's program I noticed particularly in computer science, electrical engineering, many places have master's program. In other places, mechanical production engineering and so on. Mechanical engineering has master's programs. So before I move to next thing, well, the third is of course the doctoral degree, which is aimed at creating a master. Okay, a master with license to teach, license to guide PhDs. That is a big difference between first two and the third. And it takes a lot of time for new students, new entrants to get acclimatized to this difference. See, in a course-based education, there is a well-defined syllabus. There is a well-defined set of exams. The problems to be solved are also according to certain pattern. And then solving them by accepted methods is given the prime importance. That if you in the exam paper, if you discover a new method, many times the instructor who is correcting the paper is not prepared, or may not know, or may not be able to judge कि ये नया method, is it correct or wrong, or so what is given prime importance is reproducibility. Have you learned something which has been accepted in the scientific domain? Can you reproduce it faithfully? Can you apply it faithfully to some problems? That is given prime importance. Okay, there is a big difference when it comes to research. Okay, in a research project, you have to learn to define a problem. In undergraduate or even in postgraduate education, you are given a problem. Even a postgraduate, if you have done your MTech, MA, MSc, whatever, master's program, you have a project, which is a significant component. You do a 6 months project, sometimes in IIT you do 1 year project. So this project is typically defined. The research guide gives this problem on the platter, then you apply some new method. Probably he might give you a new method to apply, and then you go around solving that problem. Okay, so you are not necessarily taught to define a problem. Well, in some exceptional MTech or some exceptional master's thesis, it may happen that a student may end up defining a problem. But what is expected in a PhD is to learn to define a problem, search for methods that can solve the problem, and then attempt to solve it using not just one method. You could be using more than one method. You could be using methods that are already published, that are already known. You could be coming up with a new method that nobody knows. Okay, so it could be a mixture. It could be a mixture of what is done in the past and what is going to be, a new solution, new viewpoint that you are showing, which nobody else has shown. So what is doctoral education? So doctoral education is, you take a master student. I mean, if you look at it like a system, I'm a control engineer. I have this habit of looking at everything as a system. So what are the inputs? What are the outputs? Okay, what are the inputs that go into the system? So, but of course, the prime input is the student who comes in and whom we want to train. And then after this process, we want either a university researcher or we want an industrial researcher to be trained. Who all contribute to the process of doing research? Of course, the first person that you might think of is your supervisor. Yeah? Supervisor contributes to your research. And then, but is it something that is only between you and your supervisor? Who are the other people who contribute to the research? Literature survey, okay. Then funding agency, of course. Funding agencies are important because you need money to carry out research, all kinds of research. You might need equipment, you want to conduct a survey, you might need money to be paid to people who are conducting survey and all kinds of things. So you need money, of course you need funding, equipment. The next important factor that I would put, okay, is not, of course, funding is important, equipment are important, many other things are important. Next to the supervisor, I would put teachers and peers. Teachers and peers, see let's say you are doing research in automation lab in IIT Bombay. In automation lab, we have 7 faculty members, and between 7 faculty members, we guide around, at present, we have around 30 students, PhD students. We have roughly around the same number of master students. Okay, all of them at different levels. Okay, so this group of, so when my student who is doing research with me, he is not learning just from me, he is also learning from 6 other colleagues who criticize him during various presentations, progress committee meetings, informal interactions over a tea, okay, and the lab mates who are working in the similar areas. Researcher is not made by one single supervisor. It's a combined, it's a very complex function. It's a function of teachers and peers who contribute to the process of research. Okay, of course, the third thing that is very, very important is materials that you need. You need a lab, you need material inputs, you need government and industry monetary inputs. There are all kinds of other inputs that are required. You also need to define relevant problems for the scientific community and also for the society. Okay, so there are many inputs, many components that get into doing research, and supervisor is just one factor influencing the student. Okay, this entire ecosystem is very, very important, and a student learns from this entire ecosystem to become a researcher. If you are a new researcher, you should try and look for a place where you find this ecosystem, because only working with a big name, a big guide is not going to help. There should be a lot of people who are working in that area, similar area. You are able to discuss, debate ideas, and that is possible when there is some such ecosystem. There are 2-3 people in that area working in a particular field, then that helps creating this ecosystem. There are more students that creates. So when you begin to your research career, okay, or when a new student join with you to do research, okay, you should slowly, in the beginning, over a period of say first year, you should make him aware of what are the differences between UG and PG education. Now he has to actually learn to define the problems and not just solve given problems by somebody. You should also know about the skill set that one needs to have to do well in research. What are the skill set that you will have to have? Some of the things both myself and Professor Karmalkar, we have tried to list here, that we think that our students should have this skill set, and we either silently or sometimes openly work towards building that skill set into our students. There is one more problem that I face when I am guiding students. Most of the students think that aim of the research that we are undertaking is to do some great discovery. Okay, and I have had one or two cases who have even come and said to me that, "Sir, this problem you have given to me, will this make me Einstein?" So I said, "Look, if I could give you a problem to make you Einstein, I'll make myself Einstein. Okay, so why should I make you Einstein? So it should happen." So my aim in this entire process of doing guiding your, supervising your PhD is to create a person who can think independently. Okay, the output of this process is an independent thinker who can take on a problem on his own, chart his own course on solving the problem, coming up with a multiple alternatives, coming with a solution. So that is the aim of doctoral education. I'm not here, I'm not giving you a problem because I want to crack some big scientific, discovery. I'm giving you a problem because I want to train you. Now, if it happens that in this process of working together, something comes up which is very, very interesting, a great discovery, great. That's the icing on the cake. But the cake is you getting trained as an independent thinker. That is the main thing. We need to emphasize this. We need to sort of slowly, silently tell students that that this is what we are expecting, and not necessarily cracking a big problem. If that happens, great. So this is a very nice analogy. It's like, what is research? It's like appearing for an exam in which you are setting your own question paper. Okay, you have to set your own question paper, and you have to solve it yourself. Okay, but whether you have set the paper nicely or whether you have solved it correctly, somebody else is going to decide. Okay, there's a peer sitting there. Okay, there are experts in the area. Okay, where they will say, well, this is a good question paper, and this is a good solution provided to that set of question paper. So somebody else is, so in other exams, UG, PG, somebody else set question paper, there is an answer already somebody knows, and it's only matching, pattern matching. This pattern is matching this pattern, you get marks. That's not a question here. You have to set your own question paper. Okay, and then you have to answer to your own question paper, and somebody else is going to judge whether the question paper is good and whether the answer is good. The second thing is, this is like an exam which has no time bound. Okay, like an exam with no time bound. You can do multiple attempts. Okay, you can keep improving. Okay, no end to it. Okay, there is no partial marking. You cannot get PhD with 40% or 41%. Yeah, you get PhD when you have done a perfect job. Okay, when you satisfy the peers that you have done a perfect job, then only you are awarded a PhD. Otherwise, you are not awarded a PhD. So it's a strange exam in which you have to set your question paper. You have to write an answer to that question paper. Okay, you cannot leave the exam hall. Okay, because you have to keep attempting till somebody else says, yeah, this is fine. Okay, till then you keep attempting, keep trying new things. Now, what is the method that is used in other universities? Maybe cancer. So what we do here at IIT is that we of course have a yearly progress report, progress review meetings, and then at the end, once this progress committee approves, after sufficient criticism that entire work is good enough to be submitted as a PhD, then we send it. Typically, one referee is from abroad, one is from India, and then those two international experts. International experts from India and international expert from abroad, they have to accept and say that, yeah, this is a good question paper and the solution is good. And then only we proceed to. So you have to be better than the best. And this is a big difference between, you can't just do something chalta hai and get a PhD. So that is a big difference between a PhD education, and this is a very, very common problem that I face when a new student joins with me. Many times, when the student starts working with me, for first few years, he believes that, in my table, there are lots of problems. And I know the solutions. I'm not telling him or her that this is the way to go about it. Yeah? So they think that, I have a repository of problems, and I also have a repository of solutions. And it is just that, probably either this person doesn't know, kuch aata nahi hai, okay, or khadus hai and then not giving me the answer. Okay, so it could be, and I'm telling you this because I have seen it from both the sides. I was a student here in IIT Bombay. I did my PhD here, so I know what are the mess table discussions. Yeah, they will say, "Arey, ye problem diya hai, isko kuch aata nahi hai." This is a common mess table discussion in the PhD hostel. Now, what I want to tell them, so these days we are trying to hold initial sensitizing sessions and saying that, look, this is different from UG education. In UG, when I give you a problem, I know the solution. Here, I'm giving you a problem for which I don't know the solution. Okay, at best, I can give you a good guess. I can give you a good direction, but my direction could be wrong. Okay, it's not that my direction is correct. So what most of the students don't realize is that guide has given you something to get started with, okay, and depending upon how research progresses, it might end up in something else. You want to make a Rolls-Royce, you might end up making a bullock cart. Of course, your job is to say that how my bullock cart is the future Rolls-Royce. That is how we have to sell your work. So it may happen that there is so much difference. What I mean to say is that I'm not trying to, you might want to make a Rolls-Royce and you might end up making an aircraft. It could go whatever way. Okay. So the point is that you are defining problems in which the guide, the supervisor, doesn't know the solution, and this is something most students don't know.
Having a certain solution for the problem, but it becomes difficult to get it accepted by the guide for certain time period, and then it is accepted after certain period. So that becomes a problem for the student to be frustrated that whether I am proceeding in the right direction or whether I have put the required effort or still it is very far away.
Yeah. Doctor?
Yes, sir. I am Dr. B.L. Salvi, Assistant Professor in Mechanical Engineering, College of Technology and Engineering, Udaipur.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I think he has brought up a very, very important point, and I'm going to touch upon it a little later. This particular problem is very important in the context of research, and I'm going to talk about it. Okay, so what is the common misconception? So this is one common misconception, that the guide is sitting on problems. He just has to distribute those problems, and then he has the solutions or she has the solutions, and just matter of not telling me or telling me and so on. Okay. The second misconception is about the thesis, is about PhD thesis. Most of the PhD students for a long period of time believe that a PhD thesis is nothing but collection of many things. Okay. It's an extensive collection of material on a specialized topic, which is not the case. Okay. If you look at a dictionary definition of what is a thesis, it says it's a proposition stated or put forward for consideration, especially one to be discussed, proved, or to be maintained against objections. I am happy when my student comes to a point where he starts selecting the topic. I want to train my student so that he selects the topic or she selects the topic. Sorry, I shouldn't say he selects the topic. He or she selects the topic. Okay, so I have given him something in the beginning or given her something in the beginning. It might gravitate to something completely different. Okay, see, I'll just give an example. A student just defended his PhD last week. Yes, so this is a common problem that occurs while guiding research, that, very, very common problem. Okay, the reason being, yes, so there are all these conflicts we encounter here, and I will dwell upon them. Okay, I'll take them. I'm going to talk about, I'm very happy that you are raising these questions. I'm going to share my experience about this, and then it could be more of a discussion where you could share your experiences about this. So, so as faculty guiding research, both as students doing research. Okay, so that those who are aspiring to do research will learn from this discussion. Okay, that is the aim. That is the aim of this particular. The reality is that a doctoral thesis presents details of a novel theory or an approach, okay, which the student is expected to defend. Okay, defend against any objections by peers. Peers could be the group. In the beginning, the peer group is faculty in automation lab for my students. Okay, peer are when they are submitting conference papers, journal papers. Peers are all the reviewers of their work. Okay, and so this is a PhD thesis is actually a position taken, and you should be able to defend that position. If you are able to take an independent position, if you are able to define a problem independently, that is what I want my students to do. So I am very happy if the problem gravitates to something else from what I had given. Recently, a student graduated. We started with working on something on optimal control of reactive distillation systems. We ended up finally working on estimation theory, algorithms for estimating model parameters from data. Over a period of time, the student learned to change the definition and entire picture changed. Final thesis was submitted. The first title was given in distillation. The final thesis was submitted in estimation theory, more applied mathematics. And the student took lead to, shape the thesis. I was very happy that he could, define the problem, could change the thesis. So this is the openness that I have to have as a researcher. Okay, and why this openness is not there, I'll talk about it because that's an important issue when you're guiding research. So what is research? It involves questioning, doubting, observing, measuring, modeling, verifying, testing. Okay, this is where the problem starts. Okay, see, there is one big difference between which is not a good idea. We write the synopsis when finally we are sure this is what is going to go into the thesis. I wish this would change in universities. Maybe some collective pressure needs to be built up, saying that IITs are not doing it. Okay, we change the title of the thesis on the day of defense. Okay, which is against the spirit of research. Yeah, but we permit change of thesis title even on the day of submission of the thesis. The final title has to be given. Okay, the initial proposal and the final title and the final synopsis may have no connection. We are able to do good research. I think one of the things is this openness that we have. Okay, there are systems where we have a committee which will approve the title and the synopsis. There's a committee the same committee will look at the initial proposal, and they are happy to look at both. They don't say that why this was this and why this was this. Okay, so as I said, it can be completely different. So the question, जो आपने अभी question raise किया कि why many times there is a conflict between the guide and the student. There is one big difference between a PhD education and undergraduate education. In undergraduate education, the teacher is here, student is here. Okay, maybe masters, that gap reduces. In PhD, problem starts coming when it is here. And after some time, my students know better than me. They are looking at that problem day and night. I'm guiding at a time 7 students. Okay, one person is looking at that problem for 5 years, day and night. He's just struggling, looking at many papers. He or she knows more than me. I have to have openness to accept that. I have seen this. So these are the experience that we would like to share, that that we have to have this openness as a guide to accept that after some time, the student knows more than me. Okay, and I have to take an expert opinion when some problem comes in that area. This is not known to most of the guides. Let me admit, I also didn't know it in the beginning. Okay, so it is through discussions with seniors or with some book which I'm going to. There's a book called How to Do PhD. Okay, initially I thought, I also laughed. Okay, what is that? In that book, he discusses many psychological issues that come up between guide and the student. There's a chapter on how to manage your supervisor. Okay. Huh? No, there is no conclusion. You should read the book. No. So you have to learn to manage. And so my students have to learn to manage me. Okay. The second thing is, there is a chapter on how to manage the student. Okay. So see, there are conflicting interests. Like our professor is saying here that there could be a consultancy project. Okay, I got a consultancy project. I want my PhD student to do some consultancy work while he is doing his PhD work. So there are conflicting interests. The guide has some different interest. The student has some different interest. Okay, and unless both understand this clearly, okay, the team doesn't work together. Okay, see, there's a one difference between this is the other education, classroom-based education, and here you are directly one-to-one, teacher-student relationship. So this ego management, ego conflicts are very, very often. Okay, so who defines the problem? The problem starts here. See, the research spirit is questioning. Okay, if my student starts questioning me, I get perturbed. How can, this fellow, I have seen world so much, abhi ka bachcha hai, mujhe sikha raha hai. So the one thing that I need to have as a guide is to understand that I am training this person to question. Okay, and if I am training somebody to question, first thing when you learn language, first thing you try is with your parents. Yeah. So, I am academic parent of this person. First thing, usko gun de diya, wo pehle mujhe marne wala hai. Okay, I have to understand this. Unless I have this maturity as a guide, it is very difficult to guide research. Okay, so this is very, very important. Then, what is the criteria to evaluate good research? The criteria to evaluate good research is novelty, truth, accuracy, logical reasoning, and sound analysis. Okay. So these are very, very important criteria. These are extremely important when you judge a thesis, when you judge a paper that comes to you for a review. Okay. And how do you prepare yourself to judge this? Is what we are doing when you are training a PhD student. The PhD student should be able to judge research. Now you are actually creating a doubting Tom. Okay. And doubts lead to an inquiry, and persistent inquiry leads to some observation or a discovery. This is a very famous quotation from Francis Bacon. If a man, just think about it, it's a paradoxical statement. If a man begins with certainties, he shall end in doubt. Somebody thinks that this is the way things are. After some time, he starts saying that, well, it is not the way. Okay. So, and you start doubting. But if he is content to begin with a doubt, okay, he will end in certainties. If you are doubtful, if you are searching, if you are curious, then using your logical reasoning, using your methods of learning, you will finally lead to certain conclusions. Very nice thing to reflect upon when it comes to. So why should you do research? Research, okay? What is the purpose? What is the aim? That should be clear. Getting a good job. Employment. You're furthering your, then what is the other reason? You should develop new technologies. Why? For the benefit of the society.
To get a solution
For a?
problem,
Why?
for betterment of society.
One is betterment of society. Of course, I agree. There is something else to add. Anyone wants to add to this? Innovative product for industrial reasons. And then benefits of the society. Yeah. Promotions. Yes. Yes. Nowadays, yes, of course, that is. Yes, then? Yeah, I'm very, very happy to hear this answer. Getting a deep understanding. Okay. We have tried to put this together on 4 points. Why most of the people come for doing research. I have put the first one on what sir has said, to get deep understanding on some problem. Intellectual curiosity. Okay. We human beings are, innately curious. We want to see everyone else who is doing what. Okay. There are birds, we have ornithology. Okay. We want to see what birds are doing, वो nest में क्या करते हैं, किधर खाते हैं, किधर जाते हैं. We look at insects, we look at, microbes and all kinds of things. And then finally, many of us also engineers try to say that now how can use all that for benefit of human beings and so on. We are curious. So the first thing, the first most important reason we would place is that you do research because of curiosity and intellectual satisfaction. This is a nice quote by Einstein, which says that I have no special talent, I am just passionately curious. Yeah, and well, I sometimes think yes, that is what is really needed to do research. That is the most important service of the society. Yeah, that it came out from most of you when you were talking, when we were discussing. Some people do it for adventure, challenge. I want to crack this problem. Okay, I want to take on something which nobody else is able to do. So challenge could be a reason why you want to do research. Of course, fourth could be advance your career, earning promotions. Okay, so this could be another reason. Now, we have tried to put them in some kind of a order. Both myself and Professor Karmarkar think that best research comes when it is for first 3 categories. When a researcher is fired by the first 3 categories, best research comes. Curiosity, societal benefits. Some people want to do. You will see. We are actually going to have some case studies presented to you by Tatas have funded a center here called Tata Center. Last 2 days, Tata Center is going to present some very nice case studies of actual translation from idea to research. So societal benefits. So that is those things lead to very nice research problems and adventure. Well, what we find is that if this is the only reason why you are doing research, okay, that may not lead to a good research. But what I have found in my, I have guided around 7 QIP students. So things change. Many times students come in the beginning by saying, I want to do this PhD because that will give me career advancement. Okay, but gradually this atmosphere, it induces, I would say, different ideas, and then they become charged as researchers. So it's fine if you land up here initially as for career advancement, okay, but you should graduate to a little different level than career advancement. Then you will develop that passion for research. That is very, very important. What is not known most of the times is that research involves prolonged efforts on a special topic, okay, requires you to be a doubting Tom than person who accepts things easily. Okay, so this is a very, very important quality of a researcher. So if your student has started doubting, he's on the right path. Or if you have started questioning your supervisor, okay, you are on the right path. So I'm telling you both ways. Those who are doing research right now, one moment you start feeling, isko kuch aata nahi hai, you are on the right path. Okay, I want my students to say that to me. Okay, that then it involves extensive and broad-based reading outside the domain of interest. This is very, very important. Very, very important. Students, most of the times, just one of the big mistakes nowadays people do is that new students who come to me, they think that world doesn't exist outside something called Google. Okay. So if some material is not there on Google, it doesn't exist for them. There is no library. The library is not a thing that, nobody visits the library. They just want to, they should do broad spectrum reading. That is very, very important. And you should encourage that, okay, making them read. And there are some other techniques that I will tell you that we try to do it here. It needs perseverance and ability to cope with failures. Okay, this is a very, very important thing, that there are many times there are failures. Okay, we started, as I said, we started a problem A, we end up with problems, Z, and then we have to finally show that as if, see, the big problem comes when you read somebody else's thesis. The thesis is written in such a way, okay, that as if the person who has written the thesis, the day he or she joined PhD, knew everything, okay, and some logical deductive order, okay, the thesis is presented. A new student, when he or she reads that thesis, they are, my goodness, how can I do this? Okay, this person who has written the thesis, he knows everything. From the day one, he knew that this is how the problem should be formulated, this is the approach to be taken, but that's not the case. Okay, what you write on the first page of your thesis could be something that you discovered in the last month of your work. It is not a chronological, it is only a logically, deductively written document. That is because that has become the style of writing. Nobody tells you what really happened in the background. Okay, and when a new researcher, it is important to tell the new students that, look, this thesis looks like this. Okay, but this is not how it happened. Okay, so, try to tell a story that we actually began with this, then we did something else, then we did something else. Finally, we found that this problem can be solved, and we are solving this problem. So this story has to be told informally. It may not be written in any textbook or in any thesis. Okay, but it's important to tell the students that it is non-linear process. It is not linear, like reading a book and then you get a thesis. This is another thing that is very, very important. Collaboration. Okay, it's extremely important that researchers learn to collaborate. Okay, many people who are into research, particularly the new ones, find that they have to keep their ideas, koi chori karega. Never. More open you are, more you share, knowledge grows. Okay, so you have to learn and to collaborate. In these days, it is impossible that one person or one group knows everything. You have to learn to collaborate within the groups, within your department, within the university, cross universities, and so on. Collaboration is extremely important. Okay, so that you have to. So when are you qualified to become a guide? Okay, you are qualified to become a guide when you have knowledge of what is being discovered, argued about, and published world over. Okay, in the international literature, what are the current problems in the domain of your expertise? What are being discussed? Okay, so that you should be aware of that. That is, you should have an ability to judge worth of other researchers are doing. You should be able to review their research papers. You should be able to review their theses and judge that this is a good work, this is a good direction, this is a good problem. So that is what is needed to become a guide. You should be able to identify new areas of research, okay, and make a contribution to the advancement of an area. So when this thing happens, okay, then only you can become a guide. And the last thing is the most important. I want to give more stress on this, that you should be able to communicate your ideas to the international community, to the peers. And that is the most important skill, and I want to little bit spend time on this. Okay, so you are qualified to become a guide when you are able to manage your own learning and be an independent thinker, and you can create another one who can knowledge his or her own learning and be an independent thinker. Okay, so this involves taking initiatives. You can't be just saying that somebody will give me problems will fall on me. You have to start taking initiatives. You have to start defining problems. Contact industry, read papers, be in touch with. So collaboration in TechWhip, there are a lot of opportunities to collaborate with faculty in IIT. Right now, we have around 28 faculty members from different colleges staying in IIT, working in IIT labs. So this is very, very important. Cross fertilization is very, very important. Okay, so and you should actually take advantage of this. Gathering necessary resources to acquire background material to solve a problem, not just define a problem, and then you should be independently capable of interpreting the results. Okay, so this is what is important to understand. Research blurs difference between the mentor and the student. Both become equal, and in fact, the thing can go other direction. The mentor might know less after some time. Okay. There's a very good research paper. I'm going to share a hard copy of this with you. This is written by Richard Hamming about you and your research. Richard Hamming was a researcher in Bell Labs. I suppose all of you know Bell Labs. Have you heard of Bell Labs? One of the labs that produced maximum number of Nobel laureates. So now, unfortunately, Bell Labs has closed, but it had a big history of, conducting fundamental research. So Hamming was a researcher in Bell Labs, and then after his retirement, he gave a lecture to budding researchers on how to conduct research. A very, very educative lecture for all those who are beginning and those who are guiding PhDs, those like us. It's a very nice account. He has closely interacted with many Nobel laureates, and he has put his thoughts together. This particular document I'm going to share with you. It talks about what is stroke of genius, how do you search for a problem, what are the personal traits of a good researcher, okay, what do you mean by a visionary person, and what is meant by, do you really have to have desirable working conditions to do good research? All these questions he answers, and it's a very nice paper too. There is one thing that I want to emphasize here, is that Hamming thinks, or he recommends, that new researchers should spend half of their time just developing communication skills. Okay, you might say, what is there to communication skills and research? Okay, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that why this is so important, why communication skills are so important. Okay, and why you should develop programs while you are developing a good research program, why you should think of developing a strong technical communication training program in your university. Okay, that is, we run a course on sensitizing students on technical communication, one full semester course as they come in for doing research. So, a common misconception that is involved in doing researches, most of my students even now, even after repeatedly training them, is that their job is to do the work which has been assigned to them. Writing and all is, actually a pain. Okay. When the yearly progress seminar report comes, some report has to be written. Okay. I have found that most of the times new problems come to me when I start writing, when I start putting down. Because when you start putting down something on a piece of paper or in a computer nowadays, not piece of paper, in a computer, you start seeing the holes. And once you start seeing the holes, and then you want to fill those holes, and then new problems come up. All the PhD guides, do you share this? Yeah? Writing is the most creative part, that is where, and writing should be done continuously. You should encourage your students to write conference papers, journal papers, because it is integral part of doing research, not just doing experiments, not just solving the problems. Okay, you should start writing. Writing is an important thing. It's important to remember that reading, discussing, presenting, writing are very, very important parts of being a good researcher. What we do in IIT Bombay, in most of the labs, there are reading clubs. We have reading clubs. Okay, reading club is a club of faculty and students who read papers in that domain. Okay, and each one takes up one paper and he and she presents that in a seminar every week. Others sit, listen to my presentation or listen to that person's presentation, criticize, discuss. We chew that paper. Okay, so that you can ask any question. So the person who has read the paper has onus to understand and present. It may not be directly from his area. Okay, it might be related, but so I'm not saying that in automation lab you expect to do something on mining, but in automation lab, if you are doing chemical process control, you might read a paper in robotics, you might read a paper in IoT, Internet of Things, and then you might be able to come up with something which is. So we actually jointly read papers. We discuss. That improves the presentation skill of students. That makes them broad-based. They are able to think beyond. Okay, and this is what creates the ecosystem. This is what creates the ecosystem of research. Okay, so this is very, very important. Reading, discussing, presenting, writing are very, very important parts of, and this is common. The students and faculty both attend these reading groups, reading clubs, and we criticize each other like friends. Okay. Now, if you want to prepare yourself for a researcher, just these are some points. What is it that the student should know if you want to have a course on what is research? It should talk about what is significance of research and scholarship. They should be alerted about what is the scientific method. Okay. What is the role of technical communication in research and why student has to spend a lot of time in technical communication. This has to be emphasized, and special programs need to be developed, designed to, if you are interested, I can share the way we run it here in IIT Bombay, technical communication, which is actually research training. It is research training. How much, and in that program we teach these things. How do you read literature? A big problem student faces is that, there are so many papers. Okay, how do I read literature? What school education or UG education teaches them is that reading something means starting from first word, read up to last word. That is not needed. You should learn how to scan a paper quickly and see whether you want to read it deeply or you want to read it cursorily. You have to develop that skill, and it has to be alerted. You have to teach this to the students. So we actually have a session on how to read a paper, and then we actually conduct, in department some kind of interactive session in which they are given to read a paper and quickly they have to come up with analysis of that paper. Okay, then creative thinking. I'm going to talk about creative thinking with a little break. I'm going to talk about this. That is this something? See, most of the the atmosphere that created around research is as if one is some creative genius and those people can only do research. Others are mortals, cannot do research. I want to break this and talk about that this is not the case. Okay, creative thinking is just like any other skill. You can develop creative thinking skill and you can be a good researcher. So then communication, as I said, is very, very important. Of course, you have to know how to construct mathematical models, how to validate them, how to set up and design experiments, okay, how to ensure accuracy of your design, and so on, where to publish. So many of these things in our communication skills course, we discuss some of these things we discuss in other courses. How to manage stress, how to manage relationship within the group, what are the ethical issues in research. All these things we try to sensitize them in the beginning of their research career. It is not that with this sensitization overnight they change, okay, but it's like sowing the seed. After some time they start realizing why these people were talking like this. Okay, so I just want to give 2-3 slides on what is scientific method. The scientific method is a method or a procedure that characterizes natural science since 17th century. This is dictionary meaning. Consisting of systematic observation, measurement and experiment, and formulation, testing and modification of hypothesis. Okay, these words are important: testing and modification of hypothesis. Okay, and it involves measurement and observations, systematic measurements. The scientific method involves formulating a question. Actually, we cannot teach scientific method. We can sensitize the student about scientific method and say that when you do PhD, this is what is going to happen. It may not happen in this order, but this is what is going to happen. We want you to learn the scientific method and apply it to a new problem. That's what we are creating. A researcher who can apply the scientific method to a new problem. Okay. We develop a hypothesis or a conjecture, but before that, we have to read the literature. If you have to read the literature, who creates the literature? You and me create that literature. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay, so you should develop a conjecture which is modifiable in a meaningful way, testable in a meaningful way, carry out predictions based on this hypothesis, and then construct experiments to test, verify, validate your hypothesis, analyze the result, and the most important part is communicate the results for the peer review. Okay, if you just do a great research in a closed room, you do not tell it to anybody, it's all useless. Okay, you should be able to communicate in the language that is accepted in your domain, and you have to train your student to do that. Okay, unless you do that, you are not training him or her correctly. Okay, so this is the most critical part, and that's why communication skill is integral part of doing research. Okay, so what happens is something like this. When you are doing research, you suddenly have some new observation which nobody has seen. You communicate that observation to the journals. Suppose there are some observations on which there is a model, and you think that there is a better way to explain that than those observations. Okay, you hypothesize a new model, come up with the predictions, do your analysis, present that analysis to the peers. You communicate your results to the research papers. Research papers, theses, everything. These are all different ways of publishing, communicating, getting it accepted. Okay, so a big problem is being solved by multiple people, by multiple groups collectively. Okay, we have been given this wrong impression that science or technology develops through few geniuses. This one fellow came and he just cracked. It is not like that. Okay, there are so many, all of us are working towards it. Each of us. So I try to tell the students in the beginning that don't think, your MTech work, your PhD work, your master's work is some trivial thing. It's taking the scientific thought forward. Okay, you might be doing a project which is either applying an existing theory to some new problem. You might be discovering new theory, whatever it is. It's an advancement. Your work is equally important as any other big scientist work. Okay, so this is, actually we are creating a Wikipedia which is peer reviewed. Okay, which is peer reviewed. That is the difference. Science develops collectively, not through. And it's important to emphasize this with the new students. They don't know this. We have all these newspaper kind of things that, this one great genius discovered something. That's not the case. Is at the heart of carrying out research. Then you have to sow the seeds of this research culture, and I'll take up this in my next presentation, how to do that. Okay, so it's important to note that research involves diverse ways of learning same things. Okay, research psychology has shown that creative thinking is a skill that can be developed, and I'll talk about this in my next lecture. So I just want to say here that there is no shortcut to doing research. You cannot have a training program that will get you started, but giving a good training program by experienced researcher to the budding researcher will help them to do their research better. It's important to do that. Many of IITs have started doing that, and I hope you will also be able to do that. With that, I'll just give you this papers. This is the book that I was talking about, How to Get a PhD, a handbook for PhD students and for their supervisors. Okay, this has gone into multiple multiple editions. Some 6th or 7th edition is right now. And it is quite interesting book. Few years back when I saw this book, I just laughed and said, oh, how can somebody write a book on how to get a PhD? But there are many nice aspects of this entire process of doing PhD are discussed in that. That will be helpful. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Normally, the problem that we face is that when we go for any research work given to a student, be it MTech or PhD, if we work on any domain, the kind of knowledge that we have and the kind of facility that we have, already that work has been done worldwide to a very greater extent. So and we are not even able to reach up to that level so that we can cross that and like do that kind of a work there. Okay, to solve that problem, then we take another, there is another way out for that we take some area specific problems.
Yeah.
Okay, and we go to the field, we ask the people from the field like what kind of problems they are facing and we try to find a solution there also. But there also this, again, the similar kind of problem comes in. Like for smaller problems, like we are able to find out something. But something where like we have to cross a certain limit, like initial part we are able to do. But as soon as you cross that initial level, like how to get the things done, okay, fine. But the next level or maybe a higher level, then we get stuck up there. So any idea you can give to people like us, like what should we do in that case?
Yeah,
We-
so my
We
one...
also take help from our students who are studying in IITs to get the papers on such areas. We do that, but still the facility problem is always there. And how to make us be able to reach up to that level where we can, reach up to that worldwide level.
Yes. Yeah, so one of the thing, of course, is the constraints that come are because of the resources. Okay, but many times, see, one thing that we want to share here is that now there are, one of course is to write projects with the funding agencies. Okay, you could now, if you develop contacts with other institutions, okay, you could write joint projects or projects with the supervision of, see, suppose somebody wants to write a project in the area of control systems, and if he or she approaches me from the TechCube institutions, or if they want to help with some other project writing, we can actually help them, with the faculty here. Okay, resources. There is one thing that we want to share here. My colleague from Tata Center, Professor Narona, is here. There is a new funding opportunity which has started now, which is CSR funding.
So I am not, the main problem is not funding. Funding can be arranged or done. The main problem is knowledge level of that kind. See, I will give you an example.
Yeah.
We were working on a structure. I am from civil engineering, basically structural engineering. So we were working on a structure which is known as diagrid structure.
Yeah.
Okay. So first formulating that structure or modeling that structure on a software, that was first problem. We solved that in some point of time. Then doing some analysis on that structure was second thing. We did that. Then the problem was that the kind of computers that we have, after a number of stories, the computer used to get hung up. So again, we got over that. But then suddenly we were doing all that and we saw some video of some conference in Singapore, Dubai, sorry, where they had already taken some 400 story or 200 to 400 stories. They had twisted the building. They had, revolved that building. Everything that was possible, which we could ever imagine, was already done on that subject.
Okay.
So now what to do? And how to get our thing published. Now because that student was good. We worked so much on that topic and still we knew that we are landing nowhere because already so much has been done.
Yeah. So many times what I found here in such situations is that no two groups think identically. Okay. Many times the method that you have used, you may have used a simpler method to look at the same problem. Okay. That could be a contribution. They probably have used a complex method to come up with the solutions. Okay. Are you able to save on complexity of the modeling? Are you able to save on complexity of computations, computation time? There could be several things that one could work on, facets, that might come out as a research, rather than, see, each one of is doing revolving of this. Okay, but the method, the tool that you develop might be a better. So you have to reflect upon, how you could, say you are in a tight situation. Now you have to pose yourself that how I could salvage what I have done. Can I apply it to a local problem and say that this is better suited for solving a local problem? Okay, so we have to turn around and look at how you can salvage what has happened. So turning these failures, quote unquote, into something that is useful is the skill that we need to develop. Okay, so one has to sit problem specific and look at how to do it. Okay, so it's difficult to give a general solution, general prescription to this. But what I found many times is that the same problem, same thing, different groups there is something difference that you would have done than those groups. And you have to look for that difference and then, present it to the world that look, we could look this problem differently than what they have done and more efficiently we could solve the problem and so on. Okay.
I'll try to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Approach can be different. The problem could be same, but the approach can be different. Yeah? Yeah?
If the research project return from the international experts
Yeah.
who evaluate the research project, so what will be the situation? Who is responsible? What are the further modifications that is allowed for that project?
If the research project requires international
If the research project return from the experts, because it is meant for evaluation for the foreign or international experts, if it is returned, it is not eligible for awarding the scholar. So what will be the?
Well, when somebody, see, one thing about a research paper, when I review many research papers, I cannot reject a paper by whims and fancy. I have to give logical reasons. Okay, if there is a criticism of your paper, you should use that criticism to improve, change the work and resubmit it either to the same journal, if the editor permits it, or to another journal, because somebody has taken time to look at you, give you suggestions how you can improve. Okay, so many times, most of my papers don't get accepted in one shot. If a thesis is rejected, we do the same thing. We have sometimes situations where thesis is rejected by international experts. We have to rewrite the thesis by looking at see, nobody rejects by saying that one line rejected. They will give reasons A, B, C, D, E. Try to address those problems. See, the peer review implies constructive criticism. Okay, you may not like the word rejected, but there is a criticism. Somebody has looked at your problem and given you suggestions to improve. If you take those, you can go forward. If you don't take those, you are stuck.